over on Capitol Hill. Yesterday began the hearings into the January 6th Capitol insurrection, in which Donald Trump supporters stormed the Capitol in hopes of overturning the election results of November 2020. Former Trump administration officials testified before the House Oversight Committee, including former acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller, who was at the time responsible for deploying the necessary troops to protect the Capitol from the attack. That support ultimately never came. Here's the first exchange between Democratic Representative Raja Krishnamoorthi and former acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller. Listen as the congressman declares that the former Trump official was absent without leave, AWOL.
Yes.
On January 6th, according to your statement, you became aware sometime on or before 1:30 p.m. that day that the rioters breached the perimeter of the Capitol, right?
Yes.
According to a DOD-created timeline, at 1:34 p.m., Mayor Bowser called Army Secretary McCarthy to request, quote-unquote, additional forces to respond to the Capitol. According to page 8 of your statement, at 3:04 p.m., so 1.5 hours later, you authorized mobilizing the D.C. National Guard and providing these additional forces. That constituted a gap of 1.5 hours. During that 1.5-hour gap, why did you and the Secretary disobey the President's order to give the mayor the support she requested?
She already had the support she requested. What's your question, sir?
Sir, she requested additional support. You see this mayhem and pictures of insurrection on January 6th? She requested additional support from you. And during that 1.5 hours, either you disobeyed an order given to you by the President to help Mayor Bowser, or the President changed his order and asked you to delay support, or you just plain froze and were indecisive while people were being injured, killed, while hundreds of rioters breached the Capitol, and a nation was traumatized. Sir, because of your actions,
there were 8,000 badged and credentialed police officers on duty.
And you weren't there.
The United States Armed Forces should only be used as a last resort.
You were AWOL, Mr. Secretary. You were AWOL. Remember,
that's completely inaccurate. That's completely inaccurate.
As you said before, you have responsibility for everything. Something goes wrong, quote unquote, I own it completely, 110%. Sir, you partially own this mayhem. And that's why I'm going to ask for a DOD investigation into your actions. Thank you.
Now, the day didn't get any better for that former Trump official, Christopher Miller, after Congressman Ro Khanna demanded an apology from him to the American people because of how Miller let down the American people on January 6th. Let's take a listen in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Secretary Miller, I have never been more offended on this committee by a witness statement than yours. You were more concerned about defending your own reputation and justifying your own actions than the sanctity of this Capitol and the sanctity of our democracy. Have you no sense of accountability? No sense of shame? Secretary Miller, I want to ask you today, will you at the very least apologize to the American public for what happened on your watch?
I want to highlight the incredible job that the members of our armed forces and the civilians in the Department of Defense
I agree with you about the armed forces. Secretary Miller, it's my time. Your pugnacious style is not going to override the democratic process. Learn to respect it. My question isn't about our troops or our armed forces. Everyone recognizes they're extraordinary. My question is about your incompetence in leading them. Will you apologize to the American public for what happened on your watch? Will you apologize to the troops for what happened on your watch?
The Department of Defense and our members of the armed forces performed magnificently on January 6th.
Secretary, no one is questioning what they did. By questioning what you did, is it your testimony that you refuse to apologize to the American public for what happened?
I stand by every decision I made on January 6th.
So you think you did everything perfectly? Just like the President said he did everything perfectly in his calls. Is that your testimony? You did everything perfectly, no mistakes?
I want to highlight again that the armed forces should only be used for domestic law enforcement.
Is it your testimony that you did everything perfectly? Is that your view?
I am the most critical person I'm a career
Let me
special
ask you this.
operator.
Now, in an attempt to rewrite the history of January 6th, Republicans on the House Oversight Committee outright lied about the events of the Capitol insurrection, including Representative Andrew Clyde of Georgia's 9th Congressional District, and where he said that there was no insurrection at all on January 6th. He went further. Let's take a listen in.
Let me be clear. There was no insurrection, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bold-faced lie. Watching the TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through Statuary Hall showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes taking videos and pictures. You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January the 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit.
He actually said that if you only saw the video, then you would have believed that it was just a normal day, a normal tour. Now, anyone with an ounce of integrity who witnessed the events of January 6th knows exactly how much a lie this elected congressman is giving to the American people. But just in case you need a refresher, here again are the words of Representative Andrew Clyde, the Republican from Georgia, and it is juxtaposed side by side with the video from the insurrection. And this compilation was put together by J.I.V. Durkee on Twitter. Let's take a look.
There was no insurrection, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bold-faced lie. Watching the TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through Statuary Hall showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes taking videos and pictures. You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January the 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit.
But it actually got worse. One Republican, Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar, went so far as to say that the insurrectionists that are currently being investigated and facing felony charges from the DOJ, he said that no, these people are actually being harassed by the DOJ, not being held accountable for the insurrection. Let's take a listen in.
Madam Chairwoman, my constituents demand answers, but the truth is being censored and covered up. As a result, the DOJ is harassing peaceful patriots across the country. Without accurate answers, conspiracies continue to form.
So there you have it. You have half of the Oversight Committee, or the portion that the Republican Party has. They are outright rejecting the idea that there was even an insurrection. Never mind the chaos, never mind the breach, never mind the fact that they broke into Speaker Pelosi's office and stole her laptop. Never mind the fact that officers were killed. Never mind the fact all of the damage and all of the chaos. They want us to ignore what we saw. They want us to ignore what we saw with our eyes and what we witnessed. And the problem is that they have constituents, they have supporters who are so committed to their cause that they can look at the truth and lie about it. They can look at the sky being blue and say that it's green. They can look at the grass being green and say that it's blue, because what's more important to them is not the truth. What's important to them is having cheap political victories. And in this case, it is to outright lie about the insurrection. James, I'm thinking and I'm looking at these elected officials. I was going to call them like liars, but I think I got to preface that with the fact that these are elected officials who are being paid top dollar to go to Washington, D.C. and outright lie to us. Never mind, not even thinking about the first part of this segment where that Trump's appointee, the former acting Secretary of Defense, allowed this to happen because he stood down. He did not send the troops. He did not do what we would have seen done had any of those people been Black Lives Matter activists, or if any of them had been like left-wing activists. The military would have been in there so quick. The National Guard would have been in there so quick. Setting that aside, man, these Republicans, they're just outright lying, and there's almost like nothing that we could do about it because their constituents support the lies. It's wild, man.
Man, these people are delusional, dude. It's just like, did you really just say that it just looks like a regular day, like you're just touring the Capitol building? Did you really fix your mouth to say that? All this video that's out? Cool. Yeah. Okay. Can't believe this, bro.
It's wild, man, because it's to the point. It is to the point where we can't even break through with the truth, because the people who are doing the lying are on the largest platforms. They have the most money. They are in elected positions. They have authority, they have power, they have reach. And here we are. It's difficult to get the truth out to the masses when all of the platforms are peddling the lies. And so, and to what extent does it matter? I mean, it matters because that was just a test run. If Republicans and these white supremacists who make up their base don't get their way politically, they have made it clear that they're 100% willing to overthrow this government. If this government, by any chance, if the American empire, by any chance of history and luck, falls underneath the control of people who are not white supremacists, they are willing to burn this country to the ground before they see black people actually run this empire, right? Like actually make changes that are for the betterment of humanity. They would burn this country to the ground. And so it matters because what happened on January 6th was just the test run. They will absolutely overthrow this government if they cannot get their way. And they are aided and abetted by elected officials who sit in our temples in Washington, D.C., and they lie to the entire nation. And they get away with it because there's so many people who support that madness and that white supremacy.